Hey, everybody, welcome in. We're having all kinds of Facebook problems right now, but we do have it streaming live on YouTube. Should be able to see it on Roger's page, should be able to see it on my page. Let me welcome in, and I'll make sure we're up and running. A dear friend, a coworker for many years. We've already been exchanging stories for the last 10 minutes and talking about people and places and time. And you know him, and I know him as classic country Roger Allen. Come on
Hey
in.
man, too bad I don't know me.
Yeah, yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, my friend. We're getting up and running, and like I said, I had to switch this to YouTube. So let me ask you a question, and I'll run over and make sure we're flowing okay.
Don't run too fast; you might hurt yourself.
I look at my yeah. I just saw somebody jump on right now, so I know we are running. Roger, what was the first time in your life that you really fell in love with radio and thought, man, that's something I'd like to do?
I was 5 or 6 years old, and there was a radio station in Fort Payne that's still there, still on the air, playing country music, and they've been playing country music since the late 40s. Matter of fact, 1949 is when they went on the air. They used to do these Saturday remotes at Bargain Town in Fort Payne. And I remember going in there as a kid, and they would be set up doing their little deal. And I thought, man, that's just kind of cool. And, they would be talking back and forth to the radio station while the music was playing. I thought, man, that's kind of cool. But the real deal that made me want to get into radio was one year I was at an event, and a good friend of mine who we worked together and laughed together and cried together and joked together, et cetera, was doing a remote. And he had the WFPA van, and he was playing music and talking to people and doing everything inside that van. And I thought, man, that's just kind of nice. That's cool, to be able to sit here, play music, get paid for it, and have everything right here in the palm of your hand to where you wanted it to be and to where everything needed to be. And that's kind of sort of what made me want to get into it. There was another guy that used to have a lot of dead air at his radio station, and I thought I can do better than that. So it's a combination, a whole bunch of stuff. And the guy that I'm referring to that showed me really my first radio stuff, I mean, I was like 4 or 5 years old, and he showed me, and there's a picture somewhere lost in the shuffle somewhere of me sitting on his lap and him showing me how to run the actual control board and all that stuff. So, that's, we're going back 50 plus years. So, a combination of all of that. And the fact that music, my dad's a truck driver, or was a truck driver. He's retired now, but, all that music of listening to, the radio late nights and just, there was a lot of things to be exposed to musically on the radio back then. And even the Saturday television shows where, they entertain and people come on and, would sing their songs and stuff. And I thought that was kind of cool. And, the Shower of Stars used to come to the area back then. It was kind of cool that all the artists and stuff would come. And so, there's so many factors here that really got into the, being where I am right now, that made me love the business then. And I still love it today, 43 years after hitting the air on June 9th, 1981. So, everything, we didn't have internet or computers or anything like that then. It was just the fact of the raw love of the music and the personalities that made you want to listen and be a part of what they were doing. And that's what got me into it. Was I wanted to be a part of what they were having fun, and I wanted to too.
I used to tell people that radio was the coolest job in the world back then. And a friend of mine works at WIMZ in Knoxville.
Yeah.
He's my tailgate guy. And that's what people become in your life is I've got my go to sleep guy I listen to at night. I got my tailgate guy I listen to. And you really become part of people's life.
Oh, you do. And I've had a lot of, I keep having people tell me I should write a book. And maybe one of these days I will find somebody that sit down and have the guts to follow me around and take all my stories and stuff like that and put them in a book. And we'll probably sell only 2 copies, but those 2 people will get a book that, because in this business, I've helped people get over tons of different kind of problems from, suicides to divorce to, you name it. I mean, I have just about you help people, with weather issues. You help people with, I'm my wife tells me I'm like the Dear Abby that everybody comes and talks to about everything, because I try to understand what they've got. They've got a story to tell, so why not listen and try to be the best listener you can, and help. Let's work through this.
Roger, it used to amaze me when I first started in radio was 1991.
Oh, you're just a baby.
Yeah, and I started at FPA too. What would amaze me about you doing your show was all the people that would call. And if you were in the studio with you, the phone would ring constantly. Throughout your career, have you always got that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm still on the air now, and I'm basically working 7 days a week from a home studio, and some of the radio stations I have that we do, I have the capabilities of having their request lines, transferred right here. So, I mean, I can sit here. I have one station I'm a part of that's based out of Dallas, and that's Texas, not Georgia. And we hit a button, and boom, you can talk to people all over the world. And I have another radio station that I work for. When I go on there, I log into their control panel and do the same thing. So the phones don't ring like they used to, because we have a generation now that would rather text you or message you or social media you, or whatever. The days of the good old pick up the phone and call the DJ and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Those need to come back, especially right now with everything being as messed up as it is around the country and around the world. Those days of talking to each other and being a part of what we do would be so great if we could just everybody get on the same page.
Roger, let's start with your career a little bit, and I want to go back. I believe you started at WFPA. Was that your first job in radio?
I actually started at a college station, WLJS in Jacksonville, as a high schooler, and I worked around there and did stuff, and had some other radio stations I did stuff at, etc. My first official paying job, where I actually got a paycheck making $3.35 an hour, was WFPA in 1983.
When you were AM 870, if my memory is
1400.
870 was WQRX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Never worked at that radio station. Jeff Cook would not give me a job.
Jeff wouldn't let me on the air to broadcast football either. So we're there. So you're there in 1983.
Yeah, I programmed my first job at 17 years old.
Who is doing your programming early on? Is that something the DJ did back then?
It is. The DJ, we had formatics and we had stuff that we had to go to, and we did have a PD, which again turned into me as we went on, and but the DJ, we laid everything down for them to do, and they basically followed what we did, because you got to understand, the DJ in 1983 was a lot smarter than they are now. We were, and at this radio station, I was very lucky to have a bunch of seasoned professionals, like the other radio stations I worked at, that you really did not have to lead. They led you, and they took care of what needed to be done, and they understood formatics. They understood what the format was, and you just kind of sort of directed them. And, you kept the music in there that needed to be played, and, you kept the commercials updated with the traffic director out front, and, you did everything you needed to do. But the disc jockey, we gave them free reign to be the personality that, that don't exist anymore.
And if it does exist, it's probably on the social media in the podcast world, in what I do now.
Or it's and it's on the internet radio stations.
Absolutely love internet radio, and some of the best radio out there right now is the free internet stations, along with the stations that, like you talk about your station in Dallas. More than likely, I could log into your station in Dallas and hear you.
Oh yeah, you could log into the station in Dallas and hear me. And I do a classic country Saturday night show that's live from 7 to midnight Eastern. It's on Sam Myers ClassicCountry.com, and it's also on WSMX in Troy, Alabama, and the Ride.fm in Phoenix. And it's like radio. I have a big old huge 16 terabyte drive full of music. And if you call me and you want to hear something about Johnny Cash, we play it. If you social media me on our group page, My Classic Country Saturday Night with Roger Allen, I can play that just, like it's supposed to be. And here I am sitting in my nice, tonight, warm studio, able to, talk to the world. We have people listen in Canada. We have people listen in New Zealand, Australia, Japan, all over the world, and they participate in what we do. I do a Sunday morning gospel show the same way. So, there ain't no static in internet. It's just nice, clean, full. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can make it happen, and everything can, can make stuff go where it needs to be.
And we both started. I started at WFPA. The signal back then, you were limited to your signal range, and I remember many nights we'd be up at Plainview at Rainsville to broadcast a football game. And if the cloud was right and the moon was right, we could hear ourselves a little bit. But back then, you didn't have this huge. You had your audience, and that's who you were talking to.
Right. Other nights, you got to hear.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like going south, we could pick up. Was that because we pointed the antenna or the signal a different direction?
It was because of the pattern of the radio station that the FCC assigned them to broadcast with, versus the fact that the station's on top of Lookout Mountain, and it just didn't have a good ground. It was not a good, solid, wet ground. So, you were kind of limited as to the way the AM current could travel.
Wonderful. Yeah, I never realized that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, AM worked off current, and FM worked more off of height. That's why you have these FM towers that are 142,000 feet tall.
Yeah, SKZ here in Chattanooga, that you can be halfway through the state of Alabama and still hear it. So.
Not as much as you used to. When I was in college at Jacksonville State, I woke up to them every morning, and so.
So Roger, who was the owner of the station at FPA, and who was the first guy that said, "I'm gonna put this young high school kid on the air"?
It wasn't the owner of the radio station. It was the guy that was calling the shots named Tom Crow that put me on my first paying gig at WFPA. The owner of the radio station really didn't like me, but he didn't like he didn't like a lot of us that worked at that radio station. So
he didn't like me either. So yeah.
Well, he was gone by the time you came along, because the guy his name was Al Dick, I believe was his name. He owned some stations in Knoxville and different places and stuff like that. And he let the station go into bankruptcy in December of '83. Matter of fact, I was on the air when the phone company came and cut the phones off. I was on the air when the power company came and cut the power to the building off. And you ain't lived till you're in the middle of winter in Fort Payne, Alabama, and you ain't got no power for the heat. And you're sitting there freezing to death, and you ain't got no way to call somebody to come get you. So,
wow, I didn't know. I know the station bankrupted at a time. I didn't know what year or circumstance.
Well, and the station could have made it, but for whatever reason, he was more interested in buying other radio stations than he was for paying the bills of the radio stations that he had.
So when I got to Fort Payne in 1990, there was a couple of AM personalities that kind of dominated that market, and you being one of them. But you...
Yeah, but I hadn't come back to Alabama yet. I was still in Georgia.
Well, what year did you come back then?
I came back to Alabama in '92.
Okay, all right. So now I'm in that range, because I went to Radio Shack in '91, and by the time I probably got into everything in '91, you and Leroy and God, I can't remember his name. He gave me a radio right before he lived. Done morning shows for years.
Are you about Campbell?
Yes.
Or Roland?
Roland.
Yeah. Okay.
You all were kind of the media network of Fort Payne in a way, and you especially on your Saturday night show, because that was I remember you. I remember looking at a book when you got over to Scottsboro, and you were pulling numbers out of Atlanta.
I was pulling numbers out of everywhere. The radio station wasn't even being able to pick up at. And if they would have put the money into that show and got the money back out of sales for that show, it would still be going. And the reason let me go ahead and set the record straight. The reason I left that show, the true reason I left that show, was the fact that the owner would not put any more money in my pocket for doing that show. And a nightclub called me from across town and offered me more money to come work for his nightclub.
Oh, I did not know that. Well,
Yeah, that's and I'm telling you that off the record because or on the record because for years they said I walked out and I did this and did that with the Saturday night show and I left them hanging. But the truth be told, I made more money working for that nightclub, playing dance music because the owner would not put an extra $50 to $60 in my pocket a week.
So your reputation got built around that classic country sound,
and it would still be there, but they saw that they didn't think it was big enough, and there was enough people listening to it to make it profitable for everybody.
Well, I remember our Arbitron's book because sports was a big draw, always a big draw. But
oh yeah,
that show had a life of its own. What do you credit classic country music having such a life to?
it's real people and real stories, and it's most of the songs people can that they know can sing along to or relate to, and all of our listeners on Saturday nights were just family people that were doing everything from playing checkers and cards to getting drunk or whatever. That show appealed to everybody. It was like having the Grand Ole Opry right there, and bringing everything that you couldn't get anywhere else. And the fact that I was live, I could play you a song or whatever. And it was kind of amazing. I tell people this, but you could get on the air on Saturday nights, and I've done this before. I've done this many a times, not because I wanted, to brag or anything, but you could get on there and say, "Well, it's Saturday night, and here I am. Got here a little late today, and I'm gonna be living out of the refrigerator in here, and we'll see, if anybody brought any snacks that they left over from the week." And you'll get a phone call from somebody. Hey, I'm leaving you, McDonald's at the front door, or I'm leaving you, whatever, have a great night. And, you say, well, what do I owe you? Play me some Gene Watson or play me. So, you got a lot of that, but that was personality radio. People, they took care of us because we took care of them.
And while the station didn't appreciate the show enough, they would not allow us to put sports on over it. If we wanted to do basketball, it was early evening, it was midday on Saturday. That spot was kind of sacred. I don't know if it was because of what you were pulling or they knew what they were getting in advertisement, but that spot was sacred.
Well, and the weeks that we had an Alabama game on there that we couldn't preempt, they caught heck for it because, it was, but again, had they put the money and the sales power behind that show, it'd still be there today. And, it's a couple of people ask, would I bring it back to regular radio in North Alabama? Yeah, I'd bring it back. If somebody want to talk to me, we can make a deal. Because I would love to be doing Saturday nights back in North Alabama because, again, there's some great people here.
They are.
And that's why we're worldwide right now on Saturday nights. It's because of the people here in Alabama versus people around the world. And there's people, you would not believe the amount of people around the world that stop their schedules on Saturday nights because we're on.
I remember when I left Alabama, I ended up in California for a couple of years.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was too. It was fun, but I had to come back home. I do remember that I talked to several people about that show out there because I'd always bring it up. It's the one like home. I don't know how to describe it. It was before the internet, and it was the one thing that I knew somebody had created that was successful, kind of regional, and I would talk about getting numbers from Scottsboro, Alabama, in Atlanta, Georgia. What do you credit that to?
I think it's just a combination of just the music and luck. Because again, we got numbers in Huntsville, we got numbers in Chattanooga, we got numbers in places. There was a lady who's still a good friend of mine, and she listens to me every Saturday night that lives in Coleman. Her husband went out and bought an FM antenna and all the stuff and put it up at their house in Coleman because he heard the show up here one weekend and he was hooked. And we had a lot of that going on. We had people in Gadsden and places that Signal didn't get into that, bought into that show as listeners. And, we would go and do, I have a DJ service on the side that I, play weddings and gigs and stuff. And, we would go out and do gigs and it would be packed. So, I mean, it was just timing. I think timing more than anything. It sure as heck wasn't me.
Yeah, the music was. Yeah, some of it was you. I'm gonna go ahead and say some of it's you. You are a personality that comes through on the radio. One of my favorite DJs of all time, and just. Uh, but it was a great mix of music too. I was sitting here before we came on listening to Lefty Frizzell, and I was thinking about how you used to program that show a little bit. You didn't just stay in the 50s and 60s. You would kind of bounce around a little bit. If it was older artists doing newer music, did you have a problem bringing it onto that show? Say,
no, not at all. Not to introduce it as because again, they got to eat too, So why not? I mean, we didn't play a lot of that new music by the older artists. We usually put that during a weekday. Have a problem if Ray Price put out a new record and give it a spin. Hey, you want to hear this more? Listen to us during the week type deal. But I'll tell you a quick story here. Vern Gosden was a fan of me before I even knew he was a fan of me. He would come to Alabama in the he started in the 80s, but I came back to Alabama in January 21st of 1992. It was my first day on the air in Scottsboro. Well, Vern Gosden would come to Alabama and go fishing. And we were in Nashville one day at an event with somebody else, and Vern come up to me and we were talking. He said, "I know who you are." And I said, "Well, I know who you are too." And he started talking about the fact that when he came to North Alabama and fished, I was his favorite disc jockey he listened to. And he told people that story up till the day he died.
That's, well, now he might have been cut out of the 1980s, but he could have been a cut out of the 1965 too,
Yeah. And Brad Paisley, up till I lost contact with him, he, came to Alabama fishing a lot, and I met him backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. And he also said that, when he came to Alabama to fish with little Jimmy Dickens, that's, my radio station is what they listen to. So, I thought, man, here's these guys that are, coming to this area. And he mentioned some other names that, they talked about the radio station and Whole Nine Yards and me and everybody else. And then some. So, I got to, because of, I guess, who I am and what I am, et cetera, I worked on an album with a producer out of Nashville, the Daryl Singletary. That's Why I Sing This Way. I was a sound engineer on that album. And I worked on a Ray Price, Willie Nelson album, worked on a Restless Heart comeback album, worked on several projects because of the fact that I do ear work on the side as well as be on the radio. So, I've gotten some very lucky breaks and I got a chance to hobnob and, do some stuff that a lot of people that spin records for a living didn't get a chance to do. So, I know we're supposed to ask, y'all are supposed to do questions and stuff like that tonight, right?
Yeah, if anybody's got any, I've not, hey, I've made it all about myself. If anybody's got any questions, I've got one threw up here, Roger, that's asking me. It's from Tony. Tony don't have his location.
Hey, Tony.
Asking me about how you manage the equipment in the studio.
I close my eyes.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, but I once saw Roger get the mic out of place, and that was maybe one of the funniest things I ever seen. So
No, radio. People, they talk about, but radio. 99% of what you do when you're on the radio is, reach and grab.
really,
And you do this so much that you can do radio and never pay attention to anything that you're actually doing because you're going off of reflex. You're going off of, that button's always going to be, X amount of feet right there to the left, or that's always going to be X amount of feet to the right. Everything is just, right there. So, you get so used to where stuff is that, it's just natural.
I got one more here from Anthony, but Justin Thrash just hit us with one.
Hey, Justin, you're buying lunch next week.
How far down the list is the friendship with Justin Thrash? That was his question.
Oh, he's in my top 10.
Oh, well, he's made my list lately too. We've been sharing some information.
Yeah, Justin's a good dude. He, we joke a lot and everything, but Justin and Heath are two of the best sportscasters I've ever heard. But,
Yeah, Phil was over there for so many years that I think going in there was Phil Harris, of course, who I work with here, was at Scottsboro for so many years.
Yeah, and I can't get him to call me back.
Yeah, Phil, call Roger back, please. I'm going to give Roger your phone number when we get out from here. And I think one of the best interviews I've heard lately was Justin and Coach Van, new coach at Scottsboro. Justin's a great interviewer himself.
Yeah, I wish they'd get me free tickets to the games, though.
Justin, you got a project now. Get Roger into the game. Put a radio badge on him.
I want to be in the press box so I can see how many Red Bulls Heath can drink.
I had one more question. Kind of scroll through here. What year did you cut off your show for Classic Country? Was there a year? Was it
1999? I cut it off at the end of 1999.
Okay.
And again, that was a deal of, I wanted X amount of dollars, and it, they weren't willing, and the club came along, and I wasn't exactly looking for the club gig. It just popped in my head, and believe it or not, it was the amount of money that I needed.
Roger, 3 Red Bulls according to Heath.
And that's on a bad night. I'm sure it's probably 6 on a good night.
And Justin says Roger has a spot in the press box anytime he wants it.
Cool.
Hey, until you played a live softball game against Rick and Bubba's team back in the 90s, and Roger's your DH, then y'all haven't accomplished nothing. Roger,
that was a fun game.
That was. And they were undefeated, and we played them close, but we couldn't win it. So
that's a fun game. And the Rick and Bubba stories I could tell you. I went to college with those guys, but
what do you think? They just recently are going their separate way after this year.
They're not really going their separate ways. I think they're just going to take it easy and try some other stuff. I think, as far as them personally, I think they're still buddies and everything. I think they're just ready to try something different. Radio's changing, and if you don't change with it, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah. I came up listening to Rick and Bubba, and now I follow them on social media, and I just see their clips. I don't really sit down and listen to a show, even though they're on in the Chattanooga area. I still see their 30-second clips and that's what it's become, unfortunately. One other question here: what year was music that you consider classic country, and where does it cross the line to you?
Oh, musically, I think classic country started. Boy, that's a hard one. I think classic country really started in the 1940s, going into the 1950s when, you had Hank and you had Lefty coming in and Webb Pierce and Ray Price and all those guys. And I think country is good up till Shania. I think once we hit Shania in 95, when she started having hits and Mutt Lange was producing all her materials and it all started sounding like Def Leppard, I think after that, you kind of had to pick and choose the real classic country sounding stuff after 95 because, country got away from that real sound, a lot of it all became synthesized and over compressed and loud and stupid, especially with the modern technology. They decided to not use real people as much as just studio technologies and stuff. So I would say up till 95 with a few exceptional songs after that. I mean, there's some great songs that are out right now that I think are fabulous songs that I hope will be here, 100 years from now. But there's also songs from 1994 that I think's garbage that should go away quickly. So,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the classic country harmony of many of the groups of the '80s. Like Restless Heart and stuff. And I miss that sound myself. That's one of my favorite eras.
You can't see this, but in my home studio that I work out of here, I have a signed Restless Heart album for the album Wheels that the guy signed for me a few years ago that's on my wall.
Nice.
And I have some Mo Bandy stuff, some John Connolly stuff. I have, my walls are, signed autograph albums, Merle Haggard, Gene Watson, all the classic stuff. I have just tons and tons of different things over the years that's, signed and autographed and stuff like that. And I have a photo album full and some other stuff outside of that photo album of nothing but, pictures with and sign this and sign that, etc. And I keep saying one of these days I'm going to find somebody I can trust to sit down. Let's go through this thing and I'm going to build either a website or some form of and show everything off, kind of like my own exhibit.
That's nice. That's nice.
But finding that person, that's the hard thing.
Yes, that is. There's some good people, but there's also some that you can't really trust.
Yes. You got questions?
Not right now. I've got questions, though. I want to hit you up with a couple.
You got questions, I got answers.
That Radio Shack there, buddy. That was I have a question about Radio Shack. And I
wish they were back in business.
Yes, it is. Roger, how good is your ear to hear music? Because I have a story that you once walked into my store and knew that I had two speakers out of phase.
Well, I'll tell you this. I do, again, I do a lot of audio work on the side where I walk in and they hire me to, and their deals, they call you, hey, my station ain't sounding right and I just don't know why. So, I've got a guy that works with me and we breeze into town and we go and we start assessing everything. And so, you get, so as to how good my ear is, I don't know, but it's good enough. I've done fairly well with it. Again, I did some, X amount of albums that, I was the audio engineer on, and the Daryl Singletary album. I went to Nashville when it was all finished and said and done, and sat down outside the Grand Ole Opry House and did a complete proofing of it before it went to the printers to print the CDs.
Is it something you just
born? You're just born with it.
Yeah.
Because see, I have perfect pitch. I play about what I want to if I need to, and I was offered a music scholarship, and I was bored with music by the time it was offered, so I took the high road and stayed in radio.
It was the money, wasn't it? I'm telling you.
No, it was the free. It was all the free CDs because there ain't no money in radio.
Yeah. What did in 1999? Did you leave radio altogether?
Oh no. I was a program director for 16 years straight. My radio stations had the number 1 and number 2 slots in North Alabama, in the Jackson County, DeKalb County area. And in 2008, I was a budget cut because my bosses thought that they could bring another guy in and work him cheaper than what they were paying me, and they weren't paying me what they should have been paying me to begin with. But they thought that they could do that and save that money. So I was a budget cut. I was given the opportunity to go part-time or whatever, and I took the whatever.
Well, sometimes whatever is better.
Well, he, the thing was, I said, I can't live on part-time. Well, and his words were, deal with it. So I dealt with it. And right after that, interesting story here. My wife, she cleans for a living. She cleans houses and businesses and all kinds of stuff going on, just different things for different people. So there was a lady who was dying of cancer, and she called us over, and we thought, oh, she's going to tell us, the whole deal, which we already knew. Well, she called us over and handed my wife $10,000. And my wife said, well, that's our answer. We're going to build a studio. And I said, what? And so we built the studio, and that was in 2008. So I have been working out of the same part, 15, 16 years now?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not eating filet mignon 7 days a week, but I ain't eating spam either. So
what, now since 2008 being there in the studio, what is the pros of it and what is the cons of it? Or are there cons?
The pros are, if something tears up, I can fix it. If I want to, if I get a call from somebody wanting me to do voice work in Los Angeles, send me the copy, I can zip it back to them. If, the cons, when I first started out, you have to really discipline yourself to go to work, because there's a million things that you can do to keep yourself from working, but you really have to make yourself and discipline yourself to the point that every morning at 7:00 you got to go in, and you've got X amount of radio stations that's needing this and needing that. So you have to do that. I was part of a morning show from 2016 till about a month ago in Jacksonville, Alabama. Me and another guy, he was actually in the studio and I was here. And I had to discipline myself to get up at 6:00 in the morning, walk out here, turn the coffee on, and do mornings for 4 hours as well as all the other stuff. So you have to make yourself and teach yourself to not get spoilt with working at home, because it's so easy to want to go outside and drink coffee on the back deck, or go watch MASH reruns on TV. I mean, there's a million things you can do by working at home, but if you want to, you can treat that home as an office. I mean, when we had COVID in 2021, we continued to work out of the house because nobody had to see me and I didn't have to see them.
What's the advantage? Just the ease.
The advantage is the fact when it rains, I ain't got to get out in it. When it's cold, I ain't got to get out in it. Which weather-wise, whatever, and all the gas money that you save.
Yeah. How many hours a week were you doing there in the home studio at one point at the peak?
Oh man, now I'm doing, I don't know how many hours a week I actually am doing now. I would be afraid to say. I'm doing 40 plus hours a week.
Full time.
Yeah.
Full time.
7 days a week.
That's awesome. Do you find that as radio has matured over the last 2 decades, that you have to become more than just a DJ? You have to be up on the news. You have to be almost a talk radio station.
Well, you don't have to be on the news and you don't have to be on the talk, but when you flip that mic, you better know what you're talking about if you're going to mention anything like that. If you're going to, if you've got a story about some attack that's happened, wherever, or a car wreck or something like that you're going to mention, you got to be a lot more prepared, because with social media and everything that's out there right now, the world, as far as knowing when you're right or when you're wrong, is a lot smarter than they were, 40, 50 years ago when, all that was not there. So, you have to be a lot more educated in what you do and what you say when you flip the mic versus, 20 years ago when, it was all about, intro on a song. And you don't do a talk format now. you do an information type deal to, you keep them up on what's going on.
Yeah, even in my world of sports, it's changed. We don't call even calling a game. We have to keep a live scoreboard going, or we're going to lose everybody.
That's right.
So even during, like in 1992, we never gave scores till after the game.
I know. I used to hate y'all for that too.
Yeah, yeah. But if you don't do it now, if at halftime you don't have somebody at the radio station feeding you the scores, like I work at Sequatchie County, I'm on the station that covers Sequatchie County football. I better know.
You're on EPG?
Do what?
Are you on EPG?
Yeah, I'm on Country Road. I'm on the one in Dunlap. That's like
93.3.
Yeah.
Okay, a good friend of mine's the engineer, and believe it or not, when EPG got hit by lightning a few years ago, I was the audio guy they brought in to help reset the sound.
I do believe that. So I'm on the EPG network now, and we cover 4 different high schools. So I have Sequatchie County. They have Marion County on another station. EPG's carrying Marion County.
Logan's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Logan is that you know who I'm working with then.
I do. I know exactly who you're working with, and occasionally I'll cut a spot for them people up there.
Yeah. Well, if you come in that way, let me know. I'll buy you lunch.
Well, you come down here and you can buy me lunch.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's true. That's and I even work in the Dunlap area. I live in the Chattanooga area, but I work in the Dunlap area. So I've become. It's 10 years now. I've been at Sequatchie County High School, and I love it. And it's turned into kind of my gig, So.
Oh yeah. Well, again, a good gig's hard to find. If you've got one, you better hang on to it because that whole area up there is just super, super nice. And I cannot tell you enough good stuff about the fine people at WEPG and that whole operation. Travis and everybody, just super, super great people. So I can't tell you anything except just good stuff on them.
It's like North Alabama in a way,
It is.
I always love the people of North Alabama, and I love over there. Roger, question in, and this was one I was going to ask you for my boy Howie, or my friend Howie.
Oh, I know Howie.
Yeah, he had sent me this earlier, and I hadn't read it. If you're going to go, what is the one album everybody needs in their collection?
Oh man, I knew that question was going to come up. So I've already got a great answer, and I encourage you to go find this. It was done on Columbia Records, recorded and released in 1978. It was out there for 10 plus years, and I think it's still hopping around the charts somewhere. But if there's one album that you need to hear, one album that you've got to have in your collection, I encourage you to go find the Stardust album from Willie Nelson.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
Red-Headed Stranger, same thing. Those two albums are up there, and I'm a huge Merle Haggard fan, so I cannot, those, any of the other Merle stuff would, be, I just have to break the rules because there ain't no way, when I talk about albums you got to have in your collection, I could come up with you a top 25 list easy. Yeah. Back to the bar rooms from Merle. Don't Rock the Jukebox and Here in the Real World, Alan Jackson. There's just, so many great albums, from George Strait. I mean, I could do you you could send me a deal and says, okay, give me the top 25 albums, and that'd be easier than just having one album or whatever to put in the collection.
You know what? We're going to do that. We'll post that on RiverCity-Media before we do the second interview, which we're not going to get through your whole career. I didn't figure we would, but.
Oh man, I was going to call you today and tell you better do your homework because you might, if we can get all this into 2 parts or ever how many parts we need to do, I'm there.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Roger, okay, let's go back to your time working in a nightclub. What was that like, DJing live? I mean, because it's almost a radio vibe in the club.
Well, when you work in a nightclub, you walk in there with the mentality, okay, you got people that's coming in here happy, you got people that's coming in here sad, you got people that's coming from all different points of their day. So when you walk in that nightclub, the one thing you better do, any problems that you got, you better leave them outside the door. Your job is to make them happy, make them drink and spend money and dance.
Yeah.
So when you walk in there, and whatever you do to get them there, you do it, man. And you got to remember, when I was working nightclubs, I was programming at one time 4 different radio stations during the day and doing this by night.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of days that I had to, really suck it up and pull some strength and energy from other parts to make it work. Because again, you punching a clock and then going and again, people, they come out for a reason. So whatever that reason is, you make them have fun, or guess what? They're not going to come back.
Have you ran into many people from, the one I think of is my friend John Stone. I know years ago he's in a band called Shadow Creek that gigged around there, who's now in Nashville that performs at Tootsie's and Kid Rock. Uh, are there a lot of people from that area that's made that move to Nashville, or have went on to bigger parts of music career?
I really don't know.
I just didn't know if you had run across somebody in all.
No, no, I really don't know, because in 2006, my wife and I were seeing a change in the whole club thing. It was more about substance other than alcohol, and there was a lot of stuff that I really did not like seeing, and a lot of things that just shouldn't be. And there's just some stuff that I just didn't feel comfortable with. So in early February 2006, there was late January, there was this kid that was a bartender, and he got up one night and he was inebriated, and he showed his butt and then some, and there were some issues there. And next week, we pulled up to the trailer and we loaded our stuff and left, because I seen right then I didn't want to be a part of anything like that. And sure enough, it's changed, and it ain't gone back to the way it was. When I was in nightclubs working and everything, it was, alcohol. And you seen a few people doing pot and this, that, and the other. But, in the early 2000s, I was beginning to see the changeover from people coming in all peeled up and drugged up and stuff like that. And I got out of it because I did not want to be a part of that.
Yeah, something myself. I went to rehab in 2002, and clean 22 years, and that same thing. I didn't want to be part of the life,
Yeah.
and it became. I remember the days when it was just go over to Scottsboro and listen to bands and have a couple of drinks. Life got complicated in the mid and early 2000s.
It did, and we just decided we didn't want to be a part of that. So, we played some private gigs after that. But the other thing was, we just realized that staying out 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning after getting up at 5 the morning before just wasn't fun no more.
All right, Roger, we got about 10 minutes. I want to play a little bit of music.
I don't want to hear no music.
Yeah, well, I ain't got any either, but I wanted some questions and answers, and we'll pick up right there in 2006 with our next stage.
Okay.
Version of this.
All right.
I want to talk about music just for a minute, and
Let's talk about it.
I want to talk about classic country. I came to it late. I did the thing most people did. I was a rocker when I was younger, and then as I grew, then I went back and I retro listened to a lot of great country music. What point? You said your dad was a truck driver. Did that put your early? Because it's so associated country music in that industry. Is that something that influenced you, or?
I think it had a lot of influence. Now, again, for the people who don't know, I played rock and roll. I've played urban. I've played everything. I'm not just a country disc jockey. So don't. A lot of people label me strictly as a country DJ, but I made my living in other formats along the way as well. But country is just the one I'm the most comfortable with, and that's because that was what I was raised on.
Are they another format that you enjoy?
I love oldies.
Okay.
I love oldies. I think oldies are great. I think, um, again, that's the music I grew up with, and when I'm having a bad day, that's what I want to hear. If I'm having a real crappy day, let me hear some blues.
What
Um,
the blues? I wouldn't have thought of that, bud.
yeah, I like the blues. I don't like that loud, obnoxious. Where it's almost heavy metal type blues. I like the blues. I want to hear B.B. King. I
Yeah,
want to hear Muddy Waters. I want to hear, the guys that really pour their heart and soul into it and get down with it. And, you can listen to, Etta James and, those people that really, they've lived it, and I like that because they've got stories. They got, just a lot. But yeah. And one of my dreams is to be able to get a guided tour of Muscle Shoals because a lot of that was recorded in Muscle Shoals.
yeah, yeah. That special area. What
So,
What do you think of the new genre bending country music that's being released now with like the Jelly Rolls and the Hardys and guys who really take more influence, I guess, from another form of music, but have been labeled country?
well, I think the wrong label is there. I think they're putting out some great music. I think they've got some great stories to tell. I think that they have a purpose to do what they do. But I don't consider them in the same format as George Strait.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be remiss to say I don't love Jelly Roll and knew Jelly Roll for 25 years, Roger, and love what's happened to him.
Oh,
But
you have?
yeah, I've known him. I used to go see him here in Chattanooga. Would be five people in Jelly Roll in,
Hmm.
in the hardcore rap days, you know. So
Have him call me.
when I talk to him, I'll see if I can. I don't get to talk to him very much anymore. It's been about a year since I've actually spoke with him, but I think that's good rock and roll music. I don't
It
know that
is.
it's country.
No. Um, you talk about knowing people when they were nobody. I knew Garth Brooks.
Oh wow.
I met Garth in 1989 at a little place in Anniston when I was in college at Jacksonville State University. Counting the bartenders, waitresses, and staff of the building, there was maybe 50 people in the whole place.
Wow.
And he could not give his CDs away.
Uh,
And
with Jelly Roll too.
And 2 years later, he remembered me from there, the whole 9 yards. And, occasionally we seen each other over years. He's known me by name, the whole 9 yards. So, I've known quite a few artists that were coming up like that. I have a gold record on my wall for the Tim McGraw album, Place in the Sun, that Tim himself sent me as a Christmas present one year because of helping to make that album, work.
And I don't know that many famous people, but there's an art to not over stress that relationship and just be their friends. And a lot of time, an artist has too many people asking him for stuff and not having friends. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah. Yeah. You see that a lot. And radio people are the same way.
Jelly Roll sent my daughter, who's 14, an autographed record. And he did it through his publicist, and I paid shipping, and people say, "Well, your friend you paid shipping for?" Absolutely. You
Yeah.
don't think a 14-year-old was thrilled to get an autographed album?
Well, yeah, and those guys, they have to make a living just like we do.
Yeah, and it's a relationship I don't abuse. I put it that way, and I'm sure over the years you've been in that situation where you've
Oh
had
yeah.
to be a friend and not a fan at times. Does that make
Oh
sense?
oh yeah, yeah. I have a George Strait. I have a signed. It's a little round box. It's made of oak, and it's got a CD in it that he did that was sent to radio like for celebrating his 10th year with MCA Records in '91, and his signature is signed in it, in the actual oak itself, and it was sent to X amount of radio stations, and that was all. And I've got a lot of stuff just like that that's prices that I don't know what that's actually valued on the market. And to be honest with you, I don't care, but it's very valuable, and there's no money that can take it off my hand.
Yeah, it's priceless.
Yeah.
Too. I posted some pictures of a jelly roll at a show in 2003, where there's maybe 12 people there the other day, and it's just priceless to have that memory, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Is is today's country? Are there any classic country artists that you really find out there that you still enjoy listening to?
you mean like classic country artists? You know about new artists that are keeping it country,
Yeah, new artist that plays a classic country style.
like Joe Nichols.
Yeah,
Big Joe Nichols fan. I think he's the real deal. I think Craig Morgan is a great country act. I think Cody Johnson. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff out of him. You know, fortunately, country is not as bro country as it was 10 years ago, and I'm really glad to see that coming back around.
hey, we got another question here from Mr. Phil Harris that you've been trying to get a hold of. That Roger, you can have his autograph. So, would you like a Phil Harris autograph, Roger?
Yes, I would.
Phil, he's talked about you, and you're supposed to call him. I'm going to send him your number.
And Willie, and you can bring me some Frito Lay. Phil Harris story. I got to tell this. Back when y'all were working and doing sports and stuff like that, Phil would sneak me Frito Lay products into the radio station.
Oh wow! I don't think we ever got none at the sideline. Hey, you know what? We talked about him earlier, and before we get off of here tonight, let's talk a little about one of the most important positions in radio, and that's the salesperson. And what brought us to that is the guy who got Phil and I our start, which was Leroy. The salesman was the face in the community in a lot of ways.
He was. And he was also the guy that got the DJs occasionally in trouble.
What was that, overpromising?
Yes.
Well,
so
Leroy was never guilty of overpromising.
Well, yeah, but I worked with some at they would didn't ask the jocks, they just did it, and you were kind of left hanging because again, your paycheck was there, so it all worked out. The disc jockey could really put the salesperson in a place too if they needed to, because hey, we had a microphone and they didn't. So,
Roger, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this tonight, and let's wait about 2 weeks and come back, and I'll get a hold of you, and I'll post it here on River City Media, and we'll talk. I want to talk about your current setup. So, one question before we get off of here, I can't believe we've already went on air. If you want to hear Roger Allen right now, how can we hear you?
All right, you can hear me all over the place, but one of my favorite things to do is 7 to midnight Eastern every Saturday night. You can go to Sam Myers, MEYERS, ClassicCountry.com. I do a live classic country show. We got a phone number that you can call and talk to me. We have a group. It's called My Classic Country Saturday Night with Roger Allen. That's ALLEN. You can join that group and send messages to me, or post right there. You can as well. I do afternoons for WCKA in Jacksonville, Alabama. I'm on afternoons in Troy, Alabama, at a radio station. I do weathers for several different radio stations around the country, and I do a Sunday morning country gospel show as well. I have basically 7-day weeks, so I'm just I'm everywhere, man. I mean, it's and it's fun. It's everywhere, to be. But the Saturday night thing, if you really want to hear me do what they say I do, best, if you love classic country, if you love hearing Hank Williams Jr., Lefty Frizzell, Hank Sr., Mo Bandy, Patsy Cline, and even Merle and Willie and Waylon and George, and even John Connolly and stuff like that. That's my baby. Saturday nights is my baby. It's the one that keeps me focused. So
next interview, let's talk more about that, because I want to learn, or I want to talk about what you do with that, how you format it, what all the good stuff that you do with it.
Hey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do you one even better. Why don't you bring your cameras down one week, and we'll set this sucker up and we'll broadcast my show with the video deal to where they can actually watch me do the show.
That would not be bad. We will definitely discuss that, and that would be a lot of fun. And maybe we can talk to you when the song plays a little bit or something.
You know, let them ask questions or whatever. Just let the music take, you know, precedent. You know, we'll just let that go, and we'll just let them, you know, just send, you know, comments like they are right now.
Oh, Phil Harris has got one. My favorite to me classic song is "Major Moves" by Hank Jr.
Oh yeah, it's a great song from the 5-0 album.
Yeah.
No, it's from the Major Moves album.
Yeah.
It's from the Major. It's come out in '84. It's a album that had all my rowdy friends are coming over tonight, and a whole bunch of great stuff on it.
Let's see. Hey, got Howie Cheney in here again. How do you decide what you're going to play? Well, we'll call that the last question of the night.
All right. Well, first of all, I have a everything is set up here. I have a music scheduling software that I go in and set all my categories to where I want stuff and rotations and how they go. And from that, I go in and, you know, work with, and I, you know, try to keep everything flowing. So, yeah, I don't want to play something from Brooks and Dunn next to Roy Acuff. So, you know, you have a flow thing that you do, but you set your different, like in common terms, you put different records in different boxes, so you know not to, you know, pull and everything sounds stupid.
Well, folks, I hate to call it a night. It's an hour. We're going to let Roger get out of here. Roger, anything else you want to tell the folks before we get out?
No, thank you guys so much. Again, I don't know how many of y'all I don't know on here, but if I don't know you and you know who I am, if you want to pop on the old Facebook and drop me a message or, you know, something, I would love to hear from you. The more the merrier. You know, come join me on Saturday nights at sammyersclassiccountry.com or WSMX or the ride.fm. And, you know, let's just make Saturday nights happen together. And, you know, we'll all sit down, drink some coffee and listen to some classic country.
Well, I don't know if you'd call yourself this, but I call you a legend in the radio industry. And
I appreciate that. I'm just me, man. You know, I mean, I hear that a lot, but I'm just me. I don't consider myself a legend because, you know, there's a lot of guys that's paved a lot of road that I ain't covered yet. So,
yeah, you know, I feel like I've done it since I was a little kid.
You still are a little kid.
Yeah, and you know, when I started, the first day I was on the air, Roger Allen had already been on the air for a decade. So
There you go.
So for Randall Cunningham, River City Media, find us online, RiverCityMedia.com, YouTube, Facebook, iTunes. This will get up in a couple of days on iTunes. Of course, X, where you can find all of our live information. Monday night, we have a special interview, Phil Harris, that's over here commenting. Miss Phil Harris and I, both, Scottsboro new coach, Tyler Van will be on the air with us at 6 o'clock Monday night. For Roger Allen, who will be back many, many times. I'm so glad to have my friend back.
Thank you,
Roger.
Thank you.
This is Randall Cunningham. Good night. God bless.